In the world of martial arts fiction, few series have ever reached the raw intensity, brutality, and psychological extremity of Baki the Grappler. Created by Keisuke Itagaki, Baki is not simply a story about fighting. It is a long-running exploration of strength, obsession, violence, pride, and the limits of the human body. Since its debut in Japan in 1991, the franchise has become one of the most recognizable martial arts manga series ever created, influencing generations of readers and viewers with its exaggerated realism, unforgettable fighters, and philosophy that strength alone can define a man's existence. Behind the broken bones, impossible muscles, and underground battles lies a story about inheritance, trauma, and a son trying to surpass the most terrifying father imaginable.
The story begins with a young fighter named Baki Hanma. Unlike ordinary protagonists in martial arts stories, Baki does not dream of becoming famous or rich. His entire life revolves around one goal: defeating his father, Yujiro Hanma. In the universe of Baki, Yujiro is feared as the strongest creature alive. Governments avoid provoking him. Armies cannot stop him. He possesses overwhelming physical power, supernatural reflexes, and a terrifying love for combat. Throughout the series, Yujiro represents absolute strength without morality. He is not a hero, and he is barely even human in the traditional sense. He is nature itself, violence in physical form. The origins of the franchise began in the early 1990s when Keisuke Itagaki, a former member of Japan's ground self-defense force, introduced Baki in the manga magazine Weekly Shonen Champion. Unlike many martial arts stories focused on friendship or tournament glory, Baki immediately distinguished itself through realism mixed with exaggeration. Real combat styles such as boxing, karate, wrestling, Chinese kempo, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and military combat were blended together with impossible levels of human ability. Fighters shattered concrete walls, survived bullet wounds, and developed bodies so powerful that their muscles looked almost monstrous. Yet despite its exaggeration, the series constantly referenced real martial arts principles, anatomy, conditioning, and psychological warfare. The first major storyline follows Baki's development as a teenage underground fighter. Beneath Tokyo exists a secret arena controlled by the wealthy and mysterious Mitsunari Tokugawa, where fighters from around the world battle without rules. There are no championships, no official records, and no fame waiting for the victors. The arena exists purely to answer one question: who is strongest? In this underground world, pain becomes entertainment, and combat becomes a language understood better than words. Baki trains relentlessly from childhood. His mother, Emi Akizawa, pushes him towards strength because she is obsessed with Yujiro. This creates one of the darkest emotional foundations in manga history. Baki grows up in an environment where love is tied directly to power. Weakness earns neglect. Strength earns attention. As Baki matures, he begins to understand that his father is not merely cruel, but fundamentally incapable of ordinary human compassion. One of the earliest defining moments comes when Baki faces one brutal opponent after another in the underground arena. Fighters such as Kaoru Hanayama, a gigantic Yakuza boss with monstrous grip strength, and Doppo Orochi, a legendary karate master, demonstrate the terrifying diversity of combat styles in the series. Every fighter possesses not just techniques, but a philosophy. Hanayama accepts pain without fear. Doppo views karate as pure survival. Others rely on speed, flexibility, precision, or overwhelming aggression. In Baki, combat is psychological as much as physical. Victory often belongs to the fighter whose mind breaks last. As the franchise expanded, the scale of violence and spectacle grew dramatically. One of the most famous story arcs introduced 5 death row inmates from around the world, all of whom escaped prison and traveled to Japan seeking defeat. These men were not interested in victory. They wanted to experience true loss, because they had never encountered anyone strong enough to stop them. The arc became legendary among fans because it transformed the series from underground sports combat into near-apocalyptic warfare. Fighters used explosives, poison, hidden weapons, hypnosis, and torture. Battles erupted in amusement parks, gyms, underground tunnels, and city streets. The line between martial artist and monster became increasingly blurred.
Among these convicts, characters like Speck and Dorian became iconic for their sheer unpredictability. Speck possessed terrifying physical endurance and savage brutality, while Dorian mixed martial arts mastery with psychological manipulation. Their arrival forced Baki and the other fighters to evolve beyond sport combat into true survival battles.
Yet beneath the chaos, the central narrative never changed. Everything in Baki ultimately revolves around Yujiro Hanma. He exists at the center of the series like a natural disaster. Even the strongest fighters fear him. Stories spread about his feats, stopping earthquakes with punches, killing massive animals barehanded, defeating elite soldiers effortlessly, and surviving military assaults. Although many of these feats are exaggerated beyond realism, they establish Yujiro as the final wall no human should logically overcome.
What makes Yujiro fascinating is not merely his strength, but his worldview. He believes power alone defines truth. Compassion is weakness. Society's laws are meaningless. Only combat reveals genuine human nature. In many ways, Yujiro acts as the embodiment of pure Darwinian philosophy. The strongest deserve everything. The weak deserve nothing. This ideology shapes Baki's emotional journey because the son desperately wants to defeat the father, while simultaneously fearing that he may become him.
As the series continued into new grappler Baki, and later Baki, Son of Ogre, the franchise introduced increasingly legendary figures. Biscuit Oliva, inspired partly by real-life bodybuilders and strongmen, became known as America's strongest prisoner. His muscles were so dense that bullets barely affected him. Yet, despite his monstrous appearance, Oliva possessed intelligence and emotional depth. He believed true strength meant protecting what one loves.
Another major figure was Retsu Kaio, a Chinese martial arts master representing centuries of Kenpo tradition. Retsu believed deeply in discipline, history, and technical perfection. Through him, the series explored the contrast between refined martial arts philosophy and the savage instincts embodied by Yujiro and Baki. The arrival of Pickle pushed the franchise even further into bizarre territory. Pickle was a prehistoric human preserved for thousands of years and revived in modern times. Unlike trained martial artists, Pickle fought entirely on instinct. He hunted dinosaurs with his bare hands and viewed modern fighters as predators or prey. His battles highlighted one of Baki's recurring themes. Is true strength born from technique, intelligence, or primal survival instinct? Despite its absurdity, Baki consistently returns to surprisingly philosophical ideas. Characters discuss fear, masculinity, discipline, aging, and death. Fighters destroy themselves physically in pursuit of meaning. Bones shatter, muscles tear, and blood floods the arena. Yet the combatants continue because fighting validates their existence. For many of them, battle is the purest possible expression of identity. This philosophy becomes especially clear in the relationship between Baki and Yujiro. Their eventual confrontation is not presented as a simple hero versus villain story. Instead, it becomes a twisted family tragedy. Baki wants recognition from his father, but Yujiro only respects overwhelming power. Their final battle is brutal, emotional, and symbolic. Throughout the fight, Baki realizes that surpassing Yujiro physically may be impossible. Instead, he discovers something Yujiro lacks completely: human connection, empathy, and emotional resilience. Over time, the Baki franchise expanded into multiple anime adaptations, video games, and global streaming releases. The modern anime adaptation released by Netflix introduced the series to international audiences who were shocked by its intensity and surreal masculinity. Online discussions exploded as viewers reacted to impossible physiques, bizarre training methods, and fights that resembled psychological horror as much as martial arts competition. Critics have often debated the meaning of Baki's exaggerated violence. Some view it as satire of masculinity and power fantasies. Others see it as a celebration of martial arts dedication pushed to absurd extremes. In reality, the series contains elements of both. It constantly asks how far a person would go to become stronger. Would they sacrifice health, relationships, morality, or humanity itself? Many characters answer yes.
Artistically, Keisuke Itagaki developed a highly recognizable visual style. Muscles twist unnaturally beneath the skin. Veins bulge like cables. Faces distort under pressure. The anatomy often appears exaggerated beyond human possibility, yet this style gives the series enormous visual identity. Every punch feels catastrophic. Every stare carries intimidation. Every battle resembles a clash between mythological creatures rather than ordinary athletes.
The franchise also gained a reputation for blending reality with fiction in unusual ways. Real historical figures and athletes occasionally appear or are referenced. Legendary boxer Mike Tyson inspired certain characters and concepts. Ancient samurai traditions, military history, Chinese martial arts philosophy, and modern combat sports all influence the world building. The result is a universe where realism and fantasy constantly collide. What keeps Baki relevant after decades is not merely the spectacle, but the emotional simplicity beneath the chaos. At its core, the story is about a son trying to escape the shadow of his father. Every fight, every injury, every impossible challenge ultimately serves that emotional conflict. Baki trains because he wants acknowledgement. Yujiro destroys because domination is the only language he understands.
In the end, Baki stands as one of the most unique martial arts franchises ever created. It is violent, excessive, strange, and often unbelievable. Yet beneath its madness lies an unforgettable exploration of strength and identity. Few series have pushed the human body and spirit to such terrifying extremes while remaining emotionally grounded in family trauma and personal ambition. For more than 3 decades, Baki has continued evolving while maintaining the same brutal question at its center. What does it truly mean to be the strongest? And perhaps more importantly, what is left of a person after dedicating their entire life to answering that question?